Hey everyone, I'm Casey with C. Reeves Makes, and some of you may remember that little side table that my daughter and I built a few episodes back. Well, with the at-home learning taking full effect over the last year, she decided that she wanted to build a new desk for her room. Her little side table is made of ash, so that will carry over to the desk as well. We bought a full sheet of 3/4 inch ash plywood and all the material that we needed for the base and drawers. For a full set of plans for this project, please click the link in the description down below. We got to work ripping the widths of what would become the top and bottom of the desk carcass. Then Rebekah used the Craig plunge saw to crosscut some of the pieces to a more manageable size. She then found the center of the top and bottom panels and laid out a dado groove for the center partition. After she cut the dado, it was back to a regular blade and setting it to 45 degrees to make all the miter cuts. Next was to cut a dado in all of the pieces to accept the 1/4 inch back panel. We then did a quick dry fit to make sure that everything was square and fitting together properly.
You like it? Is it good?
Yeah.
Nice. Good job.
We were having so much fun hanging out and laughing that neither of us noticed that she writes 2020 instead of 2021. Now it's time to glue it up. We worked together to make sure everything went smoothly and remained square. The center panel with dados helps keep the carcass somewhat aligned and square, but you still want to check for it. Ready to fold it up? Nice. Being that all the exterior joints are miters, I chose to use blue tape to act as clamps. I have done this with great success on smaller projects and wanted to see how it worked with this. We had such a great time with this glue up, and I love that she just came to me and wanted to build this desk and create something special for herself. I'll never forget the memories that we made. The next day we got to work milling up the ash for the base. Rebekah wanted the base to mimic the side table, so she laid out the tapers for the legs. To rough cut the angles, she used the taper jig. She then used the crosscut sled to cut the tops of the legs square to the outside edges.
It's leg day.
Then, using some scraps glued to the deck, we set the jig up to cut the final inside angle of the legs. This way all 4 legs would be identical. After all 4 were cut, we marked and cut the overall length of each leg. Next was to figure out the angle that the back stretcher would need to be cut to. I used my woodpecker bevel gauge to find the leg angle and transfer it to the stretcher, as well as to set up the miter gauge at the table saw. For joinery, I used the domino, but you can easily use half laps, dowels, or even pocket holes to make this base. I set up my outfeed table to be able to clamp the parts securely. I chose to use these Bessey TW series clamps along with the dog hole adapters for my workbench. They also offer versatility in clamping location and easily accommodate different shaped workpieces. After a quick sanding, it was time to glue up. I use my Bessey K-bodies for this as they offer a stout clamping force over long distances and help keep the base pieces parallel and square. Now, while the base is drying, she could get back to working on the carcass. We ripped some thin pieces of wood to be the edge banding for the plywood. Using the crosscut sled and a miter insert, she marked and cut all of the pieces to form the banding. Again, we used blue tape and glue to secure all of this. After the glue had dried, she came back with a flush trim bit and the trim router to cut all of the edge banding to be flush with the carcass. For the drawers, we used my favorite method of ripping all of the sides, fronts, and backs, and then cutting in a dado for the bottoms. After a light sanding to all of the parts, Rebekah took the backs of the drawers over to the bandsaw to cut notches for the bloom slides that she will be using. For assembly, we simply glue all of the edges, make sure that they are square, slide the bottom panel in, and then use a few brad nails in each joint to clamp it all together, checking for square as we go. There is a handy little jig for making the bloom slide installation quite easy. It comes with everything that you need to install the slides. For the drawer fronts, we picked a nice board that had a pretty grain. And then Rebekah got to work rough cutting it to fit. Rebekah didn't want to use any hardware on this desk, so she came up with a simple little notch to act as a pole. After layout, I made a template and then cut it to shape at the bandsaw. I then rough cut all of the drawer fronts to match that shape. Over at the router table, using double stick tape, I set the template onto the drawer front. Then using a pattern bit, I cut all of the fronts to match the template, and they came out perfect. To mount the base to the carcass, we just used knockdown furniture hardware and metal inserts. I countersink the holes in the base to help hide all of the bolt heads, and then go back with a 1/4 inch bit and drill the rest of the way through the base. After another light sanding, Rebekah put on a couple coats of black India ink. This is a very thin dye that soaks into the wood. 2 coats are usually the norm, as some spots with deeper grain do not absorb the dye on the first coat. For finish, we chose to use clear poly with satin sheen. Rebekah sprayed her side table when we built that, so it was only fitting for her to spray the desk. After adding 4 coats of finish, I burnish it with a light sanding. This is a superfine grit sanding pad that basically polishes the finish to a uniform sheen and gets out any fuzzies that can dry into the final coat. Next up was to drill for the metal threaded inserts. Using the portable drill guide is almost like cheating. It's like having a drill press attached to your drill. After installing the slides, I needed to mount the drawer fronts. Having cut the hand notches, I simply shimmed the fronts with cards and then used the little Bessey clamps to secure the fronts to the drawer box and pull it out. I added some larger clamps and then screwed the boxes to the fronts. All that was left was for Rebekah to set it up in her room. I'm so proud of her design and what she accomplished in building this. For her to have the drive to use all of the tools and thought required to build this is an awesome thing. As a witness to what she can do, I am so proud of her, and as her father, I am also thankful that she wants to learn and spend time doing what I love to do. The best things that we make are often not made from materials like metal or wood, but from flesh and blood. I love you, Rebekah, and I look forward to our next build together. I'd like to thank Bessey Tools for sponsoring my channel and providing me with some of the best clamping options out there. There's not a project that they can't accommodate. If you like this process or want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments down below. My son Aaron wants a desk now, so stay tuned for that one. I'm Casey with C. Reeves Makes, and thanks for watching.